For those new to the room, the Infill Ideas Trading Club is a weekly event put on by HKK law offices that we started back in 2021. We wanted to have a place for people to show up to share ideas on personal development, business development. And I'm your host, Kyle Kaufman. Today, we're going to hear from Stacey Bennett, who is going to talk to us about money systems, financial systems. I'll let her define it, but the profit first formula. So Stacey, let's just get into it. Give us the background of, really who you are, how you got here. And I know you have a really strong mission on business, and I want you to share that. And then let's get into these money systems. Okay. How about that?
Hey, great.
All right.
Yeah. So again, my name is Stacey Bennett. I run a company called the SLC Group. We do cash flow coaching, profit coaching, and consulting for small businesses. And my passion and love for working with money and kind of creating strong money systems came from digging myself out of a bunch of really poor financial choices that I made in my late teens and early 20s. So when I kind of started my adult life, I started from, being pretty deep in the hole. And I realized that it wasn't, circumstances that put me on this path in life. It was choices and a lack of skills. I just hadn't learned how to use money in a strong way. And when I discovered actually how easy it is with the right systems and structures to create, not only like success financially, but also like the enjoyment of managing your own money. Like that money could be something that is fun to talk about, fun to play with, something that brings out curiosity and excitement around working with. Like that totally changed my whole world. I started working as a small business accountant and bookkeeper, and very quickly learned that business owners struggle with the same habits, mindsets, and just like common mistakes that individuals do and that I had seen in my own personal life. And so that is where kind of like this passion for helping business owners leverage psychology and systems to create really strong financial performance. I discovered Profit First and started working that into some of the tools and things I was training. I believe that business specifically is the institution that has the most promise. Like what we're able to do as entrepreneurs, as business owners, leading our teams, leading our communities, there's just so much potential there. And so what I want out of the work that I do and what I want for my clients is the biggest impact possible. And in my view, the only way to get there is having financially strong companies that are profitable, resilient, and sustainable.
When did you just quickly hone in on that was like, what really drove you?
Back in 2018 or so is when I became familiar with the concept of a B Corp or benefit corporation. I read a really incredible book about it and just started learning about what B Lab is doing and what these, for anybody who's not familiar with it, B Corps or benefit corporations are a classification of business that are legally bound to their impact or mission. So where a lot of corporations are legally bound to their stockholders, B Corps have a lot more flexibility and wiggle room to be able to service their mission in the world, even if that results in lower profits or lower return for their stockholders. So B Corps are really fascinating in that they're kind of like changing the mold of what business is here to do in the world and really saying, you know what, we're mission first. We and in order to be mission first, we also have to be profitable. So they call it the triple bottom line: people, planet, profit. And there's just this understanding that yes, we do need to make money, and also we're doing that in service of a larger mission in the world, and we're going to make a difference for people too. So I discovered that, kind of categorization back in 2018, and that really is what launched me on the path to say, all right, great, I want those businesses to win. I'm going to help those businesses win.
Stacey, tell us about, here's the book, Profit First. Joel's on the call. Joel, I know you started reading this. I don't know if you finished it, but so I came across this book and it was a game changer for me, right? I started the program kind of showing that 50-20-30 model. And while that worked for me, personally, the system in the business, is wasn't there, right? I mean, it's a traditional model that most businesses follow. So start with that. Tell us about the traditional model that most businesses follow.
Sure. The traditional model is pretty simple. It's income in, and expenses out, right? We bring in money, we make money, and then we spend it. And then what's left over traditionally is our profit. I saw a number of companies that had a checking account for their primary expenses and then a separate one for their payroll. The traditional model is very money in, money out, and all flowing through the same kind of pots. That model has, in my opinion, a lot of different like fallbacks, a lot of things that can go wrong. Primarily, it doesn't give a whole lot of strategy about how you're going to use your money for different things. And so I found when I was talking with clients about, well, what's your budget for the quarter, or what's your budget for the month? How much are you spending? There was a lot of I don't know. And some of the sentiments that I think that we hear a lot from folks that are running in the traditional model are things like, well, I don't really know, how much am I supposed to pay myself? So what I think the traditional model misses is kind of human psychology and our need to kind of have things broken down into different places for us to understand what its purpose and intention is. And then also safeguards against human impulse. Right. So, one of the reasons why
Mhm.
separating your money into different places is very beneficial is because it protects you from yourself a bit. If I open up my account and I see I've got $10,000, I'm like, oh, great. There's so many things I can do with $10,000. I've got like 15 ideas right off the top of my brain. But what if I know that of that $10,000, 7,500 is already spent? And I know that because it lives in different accounts. They're all named. They've got their purposes attached to them. Now I know that really what I've got to work with is that $2,500. So where I always start with people is the awareness of what's actually happening right now, right? So let's look at your numbers and see, as money comes in, how are you spending it? We do that with a profit assessment at my firm. From the income that you're making, how much are you paying towards taxes? How much are you paying yourself? How much are you strategically saving for the future? And that's what we call the profit. And then how much are you spending on operating expenses? Depending on what the results of that are, we're going to make some adjustments to your numbers. Now, you never want to, for anybody who's interested in employing this method, know that we don't ever want to just make huge cuts off the bat. So, what we want to do is we want to gradually start reducing your operating expenses and diverting those funds to different places. So, after we run the profit assessment, the first thing that you want to do is you want to open up your bank accounts. I recommend absolutely having kind of those core 5 accounts. The first one is your income account. This is where all of your deposits from your sales revenue are going to go. From there, it divvies it up into your 4 other accounts. Your first one and your most important one being your profit account. So this is where we say, like, your profit comes off the top. Your profit is whatever percentage you designate is going to be set aside for the future and for your profit distributions as the owner. Then there's your tax account, right? We know that we're going to have to pay taxes at the end of every year. So, especially if we're profitable, which we are being very deliberate about being profitable. So, your tax account, the standard recommendation is 15% of your revenue would go there. There's your owner's pay account. So, we consider the most important employee of the company the owner or the owners, right? And so, a lot of small businesses, especially in the early years, end up investing and investing in the business, and the owner doesn't ever take pay. So we say we absolutely want to make sure that for your company to be sustainable and resilient, you as the owner are getting compensated for your time. And then the final account is your operating expenses. What's left over is what it goes into that 5th account. And then your job is to run your business on the operating expenses and to get creative, to get resourceful in all of the ways that you need to in order to sustain running a business on that smaller percentage. So this is a breakdown of what the standard recommended allocations are. Now, this varies somewhat from business to business, but kind of generally across the board, these are the percentages that you want to strive for and that we coach our clients on. So if your real revenue is at $250,000 or less, so then you want your profit to be 5%, the owner's pay to be 50%, again, setting aside that 15% standard across the board in taxes, and then the operating expenses of 30%. Now, as I was kind of describing earlier, as the company grows, there are a couple of assumptions that are made. One is that over time, the owner is going to require a smaller percentage of the pay to still meet their basic lifestyle, right? Like 35% of 50,000 or $500,000 and 15% of $250,000. Like you're still sustaining the lifestyle of the owner. However, we assume that as you get bigger, you need more for operating expenses. And as you get even bigger, we're assuming that you're adding on a team. So the owner, again, is getting less, they're not getting massive raises necessarily every year, and they've got more support that they're having to compensate. So at the end of every quarter, the design of this system is that the owner takes 50% of whatever is in the profit account as a reward, as a profit distribution above and beyond what their normal salary is.
So here's another question.
Yeah.
At what point in the business's, I guess, lifespan do you recommend that they scale up and they start to hire out and they start to do more?
Yeah. I mean, part of that is answered by what is your OpEx budget, right?
Okay.
So if you can afford to hire help, hire it as early as you can. And that's, in my opinion, because probably what you're doing with your time is more valuable than what you're paying somebody else to do, right? If you can
Mhm.
generate $150 in an hour and you can pay somebody $20 an hour, pay them $20 and take your hour and go make more money for your business. So, as early as you can
Okay.
while sticking within your budget.
And the
Yeah.
profit, that's something, I mean, whether or not a business owner wants to, they can roll that over year to year. I mean, it's not something that it's essentially building up this bucket, right? Which could potentially be used for distributions to
Yeah,
reward the business owners, or it could be used, as you said, for some other big expense that you might have coming, right?
sure.
Like potentially, like to Courtney's point, right? If you wanted to make a hire for some sort of service or coach that's going to be somewhat limited in time, and you kind of just want to build out what that cost of that would be, that could probably come out of the profit too. Is that true?
You want to be careful about not using the business or not to use the profit account to like bloat the budget of the business, right? So I wouldn't use the profit account
Got it.
for a new hire. I would actually create another account to save towards a new hire, or
Hmm.
delegate a percentage of your revenue towards that to see what it feels like. That being said, the places I would use the profit account to invest back into the business would probably be into things that are going to be newly revenue generating. So again, like
Got it.
a second location for your restaurant, or adding a new division to your company. Those things that are an investment in a new asset versus acquiring a new expense for the company.
Okay, and then can you briefly tell us, what do you mean by taxes? What kind of taxes go into that bucket?
Yeah, so that is going to be for the business and the owner's personal tax liabilities. So for most businesses, LLC and S corps, that's one and the same. The owner is responsible for the taxes for the business and for them personally, right? And the other thing to know about this is that obviously you're not going to be at 499.99, right? And then the next day when you hit 500,000, change your percentages. And so really what I do with my clients is we phase from A to B, from B to C. So these aren't happening overnight. They're happening incrementally as they hit each new 100,000 or each new 50,000 on measure between.
And Stacey, thank you so much for joining us today. Really good stuff. And I might bug you to come back again
Yeah,
and talk to
please.
us some more about how to do this. And hopefully some traffic will come your way, and we'll have some meetings here shortly from people that joined us today in the Zoom room and in Facebook. So thank you so much for joining us in the Meaningful Ideas Trading Club. Super grateful to have you here, and I'm glad we connected and that you joined us. Thank you.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Thank
All
you,
right, guys,
everybody.
we'll see you later. And thanks. Have a great week.
Yeah, you